Hey, I'm Rachel Abbott, and welcome back to Tech and Science Daily. If you're new here, make sure to give us a follow. Coming up,
we're currently the first hospital in the United Kingdom to be able to offer both these choice of nurse stimulators for patients with obstructive sleep apnea.
But first, the Game Awards 2024 took place in Los Angeles on Thursday evening, the most anticipated night of the year for gaming. To fill us in on all the big winners and losers, it's the London Standard's culture and gaming writer, Vicky Jessop. Vicky, do you want to run us through the big wins from the night?
Yeah, so the biggest win, of course, would be Game of the Year. There's some good names there. Obviously, we had Ballot Trade of Black Myth Wukong, the Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree DLC, which I still kind of disagree the fact that it was included at all. But anyway, so Astro Bot won that one. And to be honest, Astro Bot kind of cleaned up. It won, obviously, Game of the Year. It won Best Game Direction. It won Best Action Adventure Game. Ballot Trade, so the indie kind of roguelike poker game, that got some nods too. That won Best Mobile Game, Best Independent Game, and then Senua's Saga won 2 awards as well. And yeah, interestingly, Black Myth Wukong, there's very glossy, high-end, like AAA Chinese-made game, which made such waves when it came out earlier this year. Interestingly, was nominated for 4 awards, but only actually got 1 for Best Action Game, which, so I guess you could say maybe that was the one that lost out the most because it was quite heavily tipped for the success.
And which one were you really happy with?
Not to jump on the bandwagon, but I absolutely love Astro Bot. I think people didn't really expect much of it before it came out. It was this kind of game that PlayStation developed, and it was, using Astro Bot, which is its kind of long-term mascot, and it basically was announced as a kind of showcase of the PS5's abilities, which would include, nods to all the PS5 franchises. So I think people are kind of like, oh, this is just going to be a kind of PlayStation, a self-congratulatory, self-referential kind of game, but actually ended up being a very lovely platformer, which is like endlessly inventive, very cute, very fun, very challenging, actually. I think this one, Astro Bot won like Best Kids Game, but it isn't like just for kids. I've played it and it is actually fairly challenging.
And what about some of the losers? Any you feel could have been a winner?
Yeah, definitely. 2024 has been such a good year for indie games, and I think it would have been nice to see that acknowledged a little bit more this year. Obviously, Ballot Trade won twice, which is wonderful. That's this game that's really broken through, I guess in the same sense that Hades did back when it came out. But, I don't think that's really what the Game Awards are about. The BAFTAs have always been better at acknowledging and celebrating indie games. So hopefully we'll see a bit more of that happen when they roll around in April. And yeah, Neva, this very cute indie, I think that won as well for indie games. So there were so many good nominees. Like I said, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Silent Hill 2 was up for a lot of awards, didn't win any of those. Tales of Kanzerazao, that didn't get any awards. I guess, and there can only be one winner, so.
And what trailers were released?
Oh my gosh, so many trailers. So the nice thing about the Games Awards, because it is such a massive event, there's always a lot of looking forward to next year, and they really delivered on that front. I guess top of my list, the trailer for the very hotly anticipated The Witcher 4 game. That was released. We got 6 whole minutes, which was fantastic. When we got to see that Ciri is going to be the new protagonist of this game. CD Projekt Red, the studio that make The Witcher, have said that this is going to be a new franchise, a new trilogy. So what we're hopefully getting is 3 more games with Ciri as the protagonist. She's the daughter of the original monster fighter Witcher Geralt. That should be fantastic. So of course the internet is absolutely losing its mind about that today, and I'm also losing my mind about that. We got Hazelight, the studios that brought us It Takes Two, this really lovely co-op player game. They've announced a new game called Split Fiction, which is coming out in March, which is, I think, quite a similar premise, but, some aspiring novelists get stuck in the fantasy and sci-fi worlds they've been writing about, which sounds fun. A Borderlands 4 trailer. Yeah, and the announcement that the makers of the Overcooked, which is this kind of co-op cooking game, which is insanely stressful, and making a co-op escape room game called Stage Fright. I guess one of the other big announcements is Elden Ring, of course. The Juggernaut rolls ever onwards. But basically, yeah, they're getting a standalone Elden Ring spin-off called Night Rain, which sounds very intriguing. It's a roguelike, which is different to Elden Ring, of course. Elden Ring is a kind of Souls-like RPG. A roguelike is very much a different kind of beast. But apparently it's going to like reuse a lot of the game's weapons and baddies with a whole bunch of new stuff, like, you know, characters with their own unique abilities. And so, yeah, that should be really exciting and very intriguing because I'm not sure how that's going to work, but I'm sure it's going to be very dark and bloody and gory.
Let's go to a very quick break. Coming up in part 2, is there a risk to human life on Earth from synthetic manufactured bacteria? See you back here in just a minute. Welcome back. Scientists from across the world are warning about a danger to human life from what are called mirror microbes. The international group of Nobel laureates believe the manufactured bacteria, which are structural reflections of natural bacteria, could slip past the immune defences of not just people, but also animals and plants. Although it would take at least a decade to create, there's serious concern they could be used as bioweapons or leak from a lab to the environment. Scientists fear many drugs would not work because they are only designed for natural bacteria. Next, patients with sleep apnea have received a choice of 2 nerve stimulators from UCLH hospitals. Sleep apnea obstructs the airways, meaning it can stop breathing in patients for seconds or even minutes.
We're currently the first hospital in the United Kingdom to be able to offer both these choice of nerve stimulators for patients with obstructive sleep apnea who are unable to tolerate CPAP, which is the first-line treatment for obstructive sleep apnea.
That's Mr. Ryan Cheong, consultant ENT and sleep surgeon at the Royal National ENT and Eastman Dental Hospitals, University College London Hospitals, NHS Foundation Trust.
So the 2 available stimulators currently are the Inspire hypoglossal nerve stimulator. So the hypoglossal nerve is the nerve that controls movement of the tongue, so it protrudes the tongue forward and controls movement. The Inspire nerve stimulator is implanted in the chest, so there are 2 incisions, one in the chest and one just below the jawline. We identify the hypoglossal nerve and then we place the implantable device in the patient's mouth. So whenever the patient takes a breath in, it sends a mild pulse to the nerve to move the tongue forward, to open up the airways, in essence, to stop the obstruction from happening. The patients then are able to activate the implant in about 6 to 8 weeks' time in my clinic, and we provide them with a remote control device where they're able to control the level of stimulation to raise it according to their comfort levels per week. So that's the Inspire device. There is the next generation, newer form of nerve stimulator known as the Genio Nixoa bilateral hypoglossal nerve stimulator, where we performed the first 2 cases in the United Kingdom last Wednesday. This one involves, if you like, a little chip that sits underneath the chin, just overlying the hypoglossal nerve, again, both on the right and on the left this time. So it's 1 incision just underneath the chin, and there's no need for a second incision in the chest. This particular device is controlled with a smartphone application, so the patients can control, again, the level of stimulation according to their comfort levels and effectiveness using a smartphone application.
It said sleep apnea could lead to hypertension, strokes, heart attacks, diabetes, and even death. The new treatments could help 8 million people in the UK living with the condition.
The first-line treatment for obstructive sleep apnea is with CPAP, or the continuous positive airway pressure mask. Now, as you can imagine, having a mask, a full face mask, or a mask over your nose, pressurized mask every night is not exactly the most comfortable thing for a lot of patients, especially with a machine as well that they need to carry with them everywhere.
You're up to date. Tech and Science Daily returns on Sunday. For all the latest news, head to standard.co.uk.